Ningependa kuregesha pale kwa ELOG kwa sasa wanajibu maswali kuhusiana na masuala mbalimbali. Hebu tuwasikize kwa sasa.
Wale ambao walizuiwa kwenda na tujua ni wapi, ni sehemu za Nyanza na Western, hawakwenda kabisa. Na wale kwenda ni wachache sana. Sehemu zingine wa Kenya walijitokeza jamani. Milioni 7 tulivyoambiwa na IEBC si kidogo. Milioni 7 ni watu wengi, si kidogo hawa.
They are not happy.
You decided to be on this side.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, let's I think Regina is also going to take those responses in English for purposes of also clarifications, and then we can be able to take some more questions from the floor.
So as we've mentioned, as ELOG, we set out to deploy our observers. The terrain and the environment that happened before the elections made it very difficult to have these elections. As ELOG, what we said we would look for, one was compliance to the law, and for issues of compliance to the law, certain areas we seem to be doing quite well, and especially in respect to what the Supreme Court directed. So from our findings, it is clear that in respect to the E-Day electoral processes, there were some improvements in the process for quick comparison with the August 8th elections that were done. So things like this time we could see serial numbers. This time there was a hard copy of, from the KIMS kit that corresponded to the KIMS kit, so that if you were not identifiable with the KIMS kit, the hard copy was available. So we've seen that there were differences in this election from the 8th of August. But nevertheless, we still see incidences rising, such as the one we have mentioned in Bolaji, in Garissa, where forms seem to have been tampered with. And that becomes, under what the court said, one of the illegalities. So we expect that somebody will be prosecuted for such a thing if evidence can be portrayed. So the overwhelming issue on the conduct of the fresh elections, on whether the political environment, because when we talk about the law, that one might be clearer to see. For us as ELOG, we can only comment as far as we were able to observe, which is not across the whole country. But when you speak to the political environment, which we've already described, that saw political interference with independent offices like the judiciary, like the IEBC, an environment that was full of violence. And peace is an important factor for credible elections. So the question we should ask ourselves, was this process peaceful? Because now we have to speak about it in the whole totality, not just the conduct of IEBC. So looking at that, was there a conducive environment in which credible elections could be conducted? For us, we feel the environment was not conducive. The fact that there was postponement in 25 constituencies due to insecurity, violence, and tension in many parts of the country meant that people were disenfranchised. The absence of party agents in some areas and the absence of observers in many areas. And generally, the hostility and the uncertainty as we were going to the elections, underscored repeatedly by ourselves, did not provide a conducive environment for holding credible, free, and fair elections that were inclusive and peaceful. So for us as ELOG, we want to look at it in its whole totality, not just what happened on E-Day, but the environment, people feeling secure enough to come out and vote if they wanted to vote, the safety, and we talked about, so I've gone into the details of all those various issues. We think work needs to be done. Whether that speaks to the legitimacy of the process or not, we cannot comment. We can only give you what we observed, and others can draw conclusions around the legitimacy, because that depends on where you're sitting, as my colleague Bwana Latif was struggling to say. But it is important because it is clear that we have a problem, which is why we feel it is important to have a national dialogue, regardless of the situation. Whether people are going to court to pursue 90 days, whether people are going to court to petition the process. For us as ELOG, we will continue to monitor all those various processes because, as you recall, the Chief Justice himself said, elections are a process and not an event. And the process is not concluded. You have the pre-election phase, you have the election phase, and you have the post-election phase. So for us, we will continue to observe each and every one of those processes and give you reports which you can use to draw your conclusions. The national dialogue, we think, is important because it is obvious that we are very divided as a country. and something needs to be done about that. We're not just divided on issues of politics, we're divided on economical issues, we're divided on social issues, and so this is a conversation that is larger than just the legitimacy of the election. It's a conversation about inclusion and ensuring that our diversity is a point of celebration and not of dividing us. Because ultimately, as our Constitution envisions in its preamble, we're working towards moving together as a country that has certain values, and those values must be felt by each and every Kenyan, male or female, child or adult, regardless of where they live in this country. And that's what we should be working towards.